There is perhaps nothing quite so important as friendship. Let that sink in for a moment, because that's quite a statement. An argument could be made for good health. And certainly good health is important, but if you have no one to do something with, even with all of that good health, how much comparative value does it really have? Money? Money buys things. It's merely an arbitrary store of value. It's not value itself. It buys away temporary hunger pains with food, and coldness with clothing, and shelter with a home. How about the importance of happiness, time, or knowledge? Well, these are all important, but if you have no one to be happy with, or to share time with, or to be knowledgeable over, all right, knowledgeable with, then how much value can you truly attach to those things? One of my favorite pastimes is playing chess when I have the opportunity to do so. And occasionally, Russ Portier will come and meet with me in an early evening, and we'll play chess together. Now, I could play myself or a computer simulation, but the value of sitting across from Russ, talking about anything in general, of sharing a laugh, of talking about our children, of engaging in friendship, those things far outweigh the game itself. Shel Silverstein is one of Grace's favorite authors. And he takes an interesting look at friendship. He writes, "How many slams in an old screen door? Depends how loud you shut it. How many slices in a bread? Depends how thin you cut it. How much good inside a day? Depends how good you live 'em. How much love inside a friend? Depends how much you give 'em." You see, friendship is a give and take thing. It's one of those things that we pour into, such as water into a bowl. If we are only taking out of that bowl, then eventually it ends up being empty. We pour into friendship as much as we take out, and occasionally it feels like we are pouring more into that friendship than we are receiving. But like a good marriage, if husband and wife both give 110%, it might seem more logical, well, if you give 50% and you give 50%, you've got 100% together. But if we each give 110%, we both come out winning. Same thing with friendship. It is the willingness of friends to give that helps friendship to grow and flourish. And of all the friendships in the Bible, that of David and Jonathan stands out. Now, David was a shepherd boy, the son of Jesse. It was he who slew a lion with his bare hands when it was after his sheep. It was he who would eventually be crowned king of the Israelites. But for now, he's in the service of Saul, who is the first king of the Israelites. And Saul had a big problem. The problem's name was Goliath. Goliath was this huge giant with the Philistine army who towered over all others and was currently terrorizing the Israelite army. And no one was willing to go up against this Goliath except the shepherd boy, David. David, armed with his sling and 5 smooth stones, stood before Goliath and called out, "You come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This very day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down." And so with a twirl of his sling, he lets one of those smooth stones loose that strikes Goliath right in the middle of the eyes, right in the forehead, and knocks him down and knocks him out. And then David takes the giant's sword and cuts off his head and delivers the head of Goliath to King Saul. And David becomes this rising star, loved by the people, loved by the men of the army, loved by the women of Israel, and even for a short time loved by King Saul. Saul had a son named Jonathan. Initially, you might think Jonathan and David have nothing in common. Jonathan has been raised as the son of a king, with all its privileges and prestige. He stands next in line to inherit the throne. He is a prince. And then you have David, who is a shepherd boy. He is the youngest of 8 sons, a nobody, a ruddy, fresh-faced, bright-eyed youngest son, who when Samuel comes looking for a new king, well, he's up in the pastures with all the sheep and gets overlooked altogether. And with 7 brothers standing in front of him, he stands to inherit not much of anything, really. Yet somehow Jonathan and David strike up this wonderful friendship. And I love the way this friendship is expressed in the first verse of our reading today. As soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Doesn't that sound beautiful? And what's interesting here is that it's Jonathan, more so than David, who initiates this friendship. The soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. Jonathan loved him as his own soul. It is his soul that is knit or bound to the soul of David. And just as Ruth clung to Naomi, Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And it's Jonathan who makes a covenant of his loyalty with David as a mark of his love. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him, gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword, and his bow, and his belt. He took it all off and he gave it to David. And this is significant. It was Thoreau who said that the language of friendship is not words, but meaning. And Jonathan taking off his robe and his armor and his sword and his bow and his belt, giving it all to David, is in essence giving away his regalia, his kingly robe to David. And it identifies David as the heir to the throne from this point forward. Jonathan strips himself of those items which represent his position, his power, his place in line to the kingship, and he gives it to David. He's pledging loyalty and alliance and allegiance to the one who has been ordained by God to inherit the throne. And I think on a deeper, more heartfelt level, Jonathan is quite simply saying to David, let there be nothing between us. Let this friendship grow. Such is the power of true friendship. When we think of friendship today, we can describe friendship and friends in a variety of ways. We might call the person at the checkout counter a friend, especially if that person waits on us repeatedly over a period of time. I have a friend of mine, I call him a friend, and I don't know his last name. He works at the gas station down the road where Grace and I, after Sunday church, would always stop, and I would get a Coke, and she would get an ice. His name is Muhammad. He's not Christian, I asked him. But whenever we go in, we stop and we talk with him, and we have a wonderful conversation, and he is so nice and so polite to us. And when I go in without Grace, he always asks where my daughter is and how she's doing. And in the little village of Black Earth where I work, at the gas station, at the Cenex gas station, there is one or two people at the checkout counter who always wait on me, Mark and Julie. And again, I don't know their last names, but I count them as friends. How we define friendship today is varied. We might have friends on Facebook that we've never met, but that we have corresponded with through our postings. But then there might be those friends whom we've known since grade school, that we've grown up with over the years, and for decades this person has been my friend. And occasionally someone will share, I'm getting together this weekend with my friends. We've known each other since third grade. And we get together at least once a year, and we have fun, and we drink wine, and we watch movies. And there's a little bit of me that twinges, not envy, because I know that's sinful, but admiration perhaps. Wow, you've had someone who is your friend for 50, 60 years. That's awesome. If we are blessed in our lives in just such a way to have a friend for that long of time, that deep and meaningful, it's hard to imagine him or her not being in your life anymore. As the years go by, I receive notification of classmates of mine who've died for one reason or another. And while I may not have spoken to that person for some years, I feel the pain of each loss in my heart. I grieve the rest of the day. I get grumpy and kind of down. I'm like, oh, Tim is gone. Tony is gone. Mary is gone. To paraphrase John Donne, any friend's death diminishes me. There's a realization that the relationship between friends, whether it's more casual or lifelong till death, may make up more of the fabric of our lives than we realize. And that our great friendships, those in which there's nothing between us, those barriers have been removed. You know me, you know my flaws, you know my moods, you know my sinfulness, you know my biases and prejudices, and yet you still like me? You love me? Those great friendships are simply invaluable. Grace Bagby, an English teacher, shared with her class numerous times over the years, if you get one true friend in this lifetime, you're rich. I've been rich several times by this definition. And I'm rich in that fashion today. And I thank God nearly every day for such friendships. And I cherish such wealth for you. But I've also been around long enough to know that one shouldn't expect too much from any human friend. Our expectations shouldn't be that high. Because our human friends are human. They get tired in general, and sometimes tired of us or tired of me. They have problems of their own. They're limited in strength and patience and understanding. And sometimes, as our young friends grow older, they grow further apart. One shouldn't expect too much from our friends, our human friends. But there is another friendship that you and I need. This is the friendship that I talked about at our Young at Heart time. It is that we need God in our lives, that friendship with Jesus Christ. Blaise Pascal said that there is in every human heart a God-shaped void that only God can fill. And he was describing that friendship that matters the most, a friendship that matters eternally. For this friendship with God, the language of communication is prayer. We pray, we talk, and this language is so instinctive that whether we're churchgoers or not, prayer occurs. And some of us don't pray all that often. Some of us pray every day. And if we don't pray regularly to God, we may find that relationship, that friendship lacking. But everyone sends out a prayer every now and then. Years ago, there was a survey taken in a major European country that revealed more people pray than believe in God. And this tells me, it's a little bit funny, but this tells me that people yearn for that friendship with God, whether they believe in God or not. There is a God-sized void in their heart that they don't know how to explain, that they've never come to grips with, but it's there. I myself could not do without this friendship. And I say this without hesitation or apology. I have many friends scattered around the world. Some I stay in close contact with, some I connect with every now and then, some I haven't talked to in many years. I have many clergy colleagues and friends, and over the years, my brothers and my sister, we have developed a friendship amongst us that goes beyond being a brother or a sister. But without my friendship with God, I am nothing. I've read of the saints who have passed through the dark night of the soul, periods of time in which they could not in any way sense the reality or presence of God, and Mother Teresa comes to mind. Well, call me a spiritual coward, but I don't want to reach any such level of saintliness that God would entrust me to pass through any such experience without God's presence. I need the divine friendship too much. And I cherish open communication or prayer with God. I began with this statement, there is perhaps nothing so important as friendship. And I stand by that. We need the friendship and companionship of one another. It's a give and take proposition. We can't draw from it endlessly. We must pour into it as well. Above and beyond our earthly friendships, we must cultivate this divine friendship. Also a give and take proposition. God has much to offer us if we but open ourselves to God. Thank God for that friendship. Amen.